What is going on? What is going on? It's your boy Julien Stoutt. Welcome back to the channel. So what's going on, my Stoutsiders? What's going on? What are you guys doing today? Today is Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. Shout out to my nephew who is 21. Do not do anything stupid. Do not get inebriated, young star, please. Or we gonna laugh at you. Just gonna keep it a buck with you. We gonna laugh at you if you got some harrowing stories to tell of your night after turning 21. I got some stories to share with you about mine, but my strong advice is to enjoy the rite of passage, but at the same time, keep it PG, all right? So, those of you who are watching tonight, what amazing things have been going on in your life? Because I can tell you right now, there's some amazing things going on in mine. School is almost back in session for me. So for me, school is back in session. The students will not be back until the 8th. However, I am enjoying my position, my new position. I'm not going to say where, but I am enjoying my new position, and I am elated over the prospects of what it is to come in the near future. Shout out to those people who I work with. Shout out to the people who put me on to this particular school. I appreciate you all greatly, and I'm excited to see and work with the children of our future. Guys, before I even get into anything, I saw Fantastic Four last week. And let me tell you, I personally think no less than a 9. No less than a 9. I'm just putting it out there. I think it was no less than a 9. Personally, my personal opinion, I think it was a 10. It captured the energy of the actual Fantastic Four as opposed to some sort of comedy routine. It had some funny points. It had some real points. It had some, back and forth banter that would happen between brother and sister, brother-in-law and brother-in-law, and family friend versus family friends, right? But overall, they're together, they work hard, and I think they signed up the right people for this movie. I think it was a great movie. I was kind of concerned due to the history of the curse of the Fantastic Four franchises. But it was pretty good. But I am not going to belabor the point any further. But I'm trying to get something set up here. Okay, so that doesn't make any sense. All right, so I'm trying to get things going here. Give me a second. Oh my goodness. Do me a favor. I'm gonna take a mild pause for a second. Give me a second. I'm gonna put y'all on the screen real fast. My bad. Wrong one. Here we go. Just hang tight for a minute. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get something to function, and it is not functioning. Let me see something. Okay, something's not right. So right now it's affecting my ability to do the show if this doesn't come through. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to the opening screen. All right, we are back. So now, okay. As you can see the title in the thumbnail, are Black women overweight? And for me, this is a loaded question. I could care less about the backlash or the reverb or whatever, but there is a situation that needs to be addressed, right? Now, I am not your average YouTuber. I am not your average person to make comments on this subject matter because I am a Black man. I am married to a Black woman. I have Black sisters. I have a Black parents, technically. I was going to say a Black mother, but I got Black parents and Black female family members all throughout, right? There's going to be a level of respect delivered in this conversation. But at the same time, I'm going to keep it real. Now, it's no secret. I like curves on my women. If I'm going to look at a woman for my viewing pleasure personally, there's got to be some curves somewhere. It just has to be. Whether they're sharp curves or whether they're long curves or whether they're enormous curves, there's got to be curves, right? That's my personal preference. However, I'm not shaming anybody because everybody has their own preference. But one of the things that my channel is primarily focused on is the overall health and well-being, because I know some of y'all are going to try to talk trash, but the thing is that if I didn't value you as Black women, I wouldn't be having this conversation. If I didn't value your existence, if I could care less about your existence, then I wouldn't say anything. I just let it be what it is, as opposed to formulating the argument formulating the consensus, and formulating the overall evaluation of the subject matter. Make no mistake about it. I'm not going to miss any points. There's no point that you're going to bring up that I am not going to address in this podcast tonight. Okay? But before we get to that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my screen. I'm going to move the camera out the way, and I want to hear what they have to say. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
So as a naturally slim black woman, I'm 5'6", 5'7", and I weigh like 170, but most of my weight is in my lower body. No one sees me when I'm outside and goes, "You're out of shape, you're overweight." Like, that's not my experience. And so as a naturally slim black woman, I'm 5'6", 5'7", women being out of shape. And this basically y'all fat shaming a bunch of black women. I had a personal trainer years ago, and I ended that personal training relationship because I felt like my personal trainer's biases were impacting her ability to train me in a way that wasn't like harmful. And watching that one trainer's video about why she's unwilling to coach black women on their image was also really disappointing, because I am smaller than the woman who said that she, trains black women, they need to lose weight, etc., XYZ. Also smaller than the woman who made that original video. And the only reason my weight says 170 is because I'm a very muscular person. Like, I'm a very muscular and strong woman. And also, I think we've already discussed, but like, the BMI scale does not work as well for people of African descent, because we do have denser bones on average than our European counterparts. We tend to also have more muscle mass at higher weights than compared to our European counterparts, who tend to at higher weights have higher fat mass. And 3, we tend to be more metabolically healthy even at higher weights than our European counterparts. And that, if you've ever been to the African continent, should not shock you. We are not all petite people, like, in general. Like, we are a people of mass. We have size to us.
Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute. Let me come back to the studio real fast. So, everything this young lady has said so far is spot on. Everything she said so far is spot on. We tend to be larger people, even in regardless of our stature, we tend to be larger people. It is no different than Samoans, right? I bring up Samoans for a reason. Asian Pacific Islanders, or I should specifically say Pacific Islanders. They are a large, dense people. Are we as large and as dense as Pacific Islanders on average? No. I think, in all honesty, I think Pacific Islanders are the largest people in the world on average. Don't quote me on that yet. But based on observation, I believe Pacific Islanders are the largest people in the world. And I am not saying that to be disparaging. I am actually saying that in full admiration of their physicality. Okay? Whether you are New Zealander, whether you're Hawaiian, whether you're from Guam, whether you are Indonesian, usually, or if you're Samoan specifically, you are usually larger than average. Now, obviously, there's size disparities between Samoans, But at the same time, if you take the average Samoan and line them up with the average of any other race of people, I assure you they are usually bigger, both male and female. Not necessarily in height, but in size, girth, muscularity. Not, you don't have to be shredded to be muscular, but in terms of their muscularity, they're usually much larger than the average person. I commend her because she actually described type 20, what would that be? Type 25 on my body type chart. She is leaner up top, larger at the bottom. She is of average height. So since she is of average height, actually that would be correction. That'll be 27, 6, 5, 24. She's a type 24 based on her description. Actually, she's tall, so she would be a type, I was right. She's a type 27. Because anything over 5, what did that be? 5'4" is above average, is slightly above average. Anything above 5'7" is considered tall for a woman. So 5'7" and above is tall for a woman. So any woman that is 5'7" is tall. Then you take tall, she says she's upper meso, lower endo, right? So that'll be about a type 26. So when you look at her, if you look at the picture here, right? Look at her, you could look at her face, look at her jawline. She has no double chin. She doesn't have extra adipose tissue around her neck, not suggesting that anybody that has a double chin is technically obese, because that's actually not factual either. Not all the time. I'll say it like this. Anybody that's obese can have a double chin. If an obese person has a double chin, they're probably obese. If a person who is leaner has a double chin, sometimes that may or may not be the case. Sometimes it's genetics and it's harder to lose. You would have to go through an extreme weight loss in order to get rid of the double chin, or in fact surgery. But clearly this woman is not of surgery. She's fairly young. Her jawline is clearly prominent in the sense that you can see where her jaw starts and ends. You can see her collarbone, although it is not prominently exposed. She is claiming she has more muscularity. She can be right. Based on what I'm observing right here on this upper body, this picture of her upper body, I will be more likely than not to accept her claim. Obviously, with scientific measurements, I can either cement her argument or refute it, but I'm going based on visual observation and assuming what my eyes are telling me is true, or false, I should say, true or false. I would say that I would lean more to the fact that I'm more inclined to believe her than not. So whoever her personal trainer was would more than likely, I would tell her she was right in leaving. I wouldn't bad talk the trainer because everybody has their talking points. Everybody has their belief systems based on science. But however, I wouldn't talk bad about the trainer specifically, but what I would say is that she didn't make a mistake removing herself from her trainer, if that makes sense. But let's continue.
Part of the reason, this is kind of crazy and it's a little fucked up, but part of the reason why Europeans brought Africans to the New World as slaves is because we were considered hardy in comparison to them. Like, we are not...
No lies detected so far?
Even the small, skinny black woman is going to have higher bone density, which is why white women are at a higher risk of osteoporosis.
She's on the right road, but she's about to veer off into the ditch. And I'll explain why. Everybody can be a victim of osteoporosis. Any race, any gender. Harder for men, but it still can happen. Why and how, you might ask? Because of societal and gender norms. Okay? Black women tend to have more physical jobs. Tend to, not always, but tend to have more physical jobs, which means because of the physicality of the work that they do, whether it be a CNA, and I'm not saying that they got to be out in the fields. That doesn't mean it's a physical job. You don't have to be in the fields to have a physical job. You could work in a plant. You could be working in a warehouse. You could be working in a hospital and handle more physical labor in a hospital. You could there's a lot of occupations that don't require quote unquote field work in order for you to still be considered hardy, right? So moving patients back and forth, lifting them and putting them down in the bed, shifting their weight back and forth, changing their bedding, carrying the different beddings and pushing these massive carts throughout the hospital to go back to the laundry and wash them and fold them and all this other stuff. It's still physical labor, right? Being a para in a school, you have to perform physical work with children, especially when they become difficult. All of these things are predicated by labor. If you look at the average white woman's laboring, it is not physical. So put it bluntly, if you're a white woman that works on the farm, chances are you getting osteoporosis is minimal because all of that farm work, pushing cows, herding cows, moving back and forth, lifting bales of hay, helping tend to crops, helping them bring them in, helping them, getting down and getting up and picking them, all of that stuff, right? If you're a farm worker as a white woman, chances are osteoporosis is not in your future. If you are an average quote unquote housewife and you are not physically active, all you do is take care of the home, but not really yourself, osteoporosis may be in your future. If you are, so that goes both ways. If you black, white, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. As long as you are not taking care of your nutrition and you're not taking care of the strenuous exercise that is required for your body to evolve, then you are going to fall victim to osteoporosis, right? But what she's getting at is the historical reference on why we are genetically not as predisposed. So she has a point, but you got to be careful. Like I said, she's still on the road, but she's about to fall in the ditch if she keeps driving in that direction. She needs to stay focused and stay on the task at hand for her argument to be effective. Let's keep going.
So, numerically speaking, weight to height ratios, aka the BMI scale, is not effective for Black women.
It's not effective for anybody. And I've argued this point before. Go check out my videos in the past. I've already argued the point on why BMI is not actually accurate. And there's several factors why. Like she said, muscularity is one of them. Activity is another. I used to joke. I joke to my family members all the time, that these white women are coming around with booties now because they're going to the gym and they're working out. Whereas the average Black woman back in the day didn't need to go to the gym to acquire these booties, because what they would be doing is they were physically active. They were chasing boys around. They were double dutching. They were walking everywhere they had to go, because nobody, in urban Black communities, we don't drive. It's just a fact. We don't drive. We either take mass transit or we walk. And growing up where I grew up in the South Bronx, sometimes we didn't want to take the bus. We just walked because we had all day to get there. And we had all the fun and time in the world to do what we needed to do to have our fun, especially in the summertime, right? But even when we had to walk 3 or 4 city blocks just to get to a bus or a train, then after that, we have to walk 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 city blocks to get to the neighborhood or the building that we're trying to get to do what it is that we're trying to do. That's a lot of walking. And then reverse the process to get home. That's a lot of walking. So I got a dump truck, as my wife would like to joke, because I had to walk and run everywhere. I used to run from my grandmother's house home, and that was quite a distance, and beat the bus that my brother was on. So one time, off topic a little bit, quite a few times actually, I didn't have a bus pass anymore. And my brother did. So what I would do, my book bag was heavy, it was ginormous, it was huge. So what I would do is I would get my brother on the bus, give him my book bag, have him sit by the bus driver and let him know, hey, it's my little brother, that's my bag. Can you make sure nobody takes it from him until and he's looking at me like, you're just gonna leave him on the bus? Trust me, I got it. He knows where to get off at. It's the last stop. He knows to get off at the last stop. So I would leave him with my bag and I would run all the way to the next bus stop. And all the way to the last bus stop. And when I ran to the last bus stop, I would pick him up from the bus. We would wait for the new bus. And I would get him on the new bus. If I couldn't get away with getting on without paying, I would get him on the new bus, run again, beat him to that bus stop, get my bag, get him off, and we walk home. But needless to say, we're talking minimum 2 miles. Minimum. All right? And so if I'm doing that, the average black woman is surely doing that. Not necessarily beating buses home, but I'm sure they weren't just taking a car everywhere they had to go. They had to walk up hills, walk down hills, especially at my school, my high school at least. You got a big old hill to walk up every single day. You don't think that everybody's acquiring a booty walking up and down that hill? Yeah, okay. So based on your place of residence, based on your genetics, based on your occupation, based on your economic status, all plays a huge role on whether or not you are of higher muscularity or not. All right? So everything she's saying so far is starting to line up. But like I said, she needs to be careful.
Being said, if you do see a black woman who is out of shape, quote unquote, more so because you do not like her shape, because...
Pause. No. It's not that you don't like her shape. So let's stop at this picture. This woman is obese. However, she is also a large woman. If she lost the right amount of body fat, not weight, specifically body fat, if this woman that we're looking at on the screen right now lost the appropriate amount of body fat, her arms would be of similar size. They'd be slightly smaller. Her chest area would be slimmer, but they would still have that same proportionality. Her proportions are going to be similar, but she is going to be slightly smaller, and she is still going to be larger than average. So I'm being fair here. I'm not sitting here casting any aspersions as far as judging her, as far as saying she is or isn't attractive or worthy of love or worthy of marriage or relationship. That's not where I'm going with any of that, because that's not the lane I'm in. I'm simply speaking on her health. She has work to do. I don't care what she weighs. This could be a woman that's 5'1", 170 pounds. She's got work to do. Am I saying that she needs to be down to 110 pounds? Hell no. You could just look at her build and tell that 110 pounds is not in her future ever. I don't know how tall or short she is, because the proportionality of the picture does not depict how tall or short she is. I'm making small assumptions for adjustment, if that makes sense. All right? So, no, it's not about not liking her shape, because in all honesty, woman built like this, I have no problem with in terms of my attraction for. I'm not unattracted by a woman of this size. By no means am I not. Now, again, because she has curves somewhere, right? On top of that, whether or not she's visually attractive in the face is whether or not the remaining portion of my attraction remains. Now, obviously, we also have what's the word I'm looking for? Sapiosexuals, or I believe it is. Sapiosexuals are attracted to people with intellect, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You know, put in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong. However, so she could be a brilliant woman, and if I'm a sapiosexual, she's attractive to me, right? We carry good conversation, good playful banter back and forth. She's got a brain in her head. I appreciate who she is as a human being. Whether or not she's visibly attractive in the face or not may or may not play a huge role in whether or not I decide to be with her long term or not, if that makes sense. If we're going by her actual physicality, I'm telling you right now, it's not offensive to me in the least. However, the personal trainer in me, the person that is more concerned about your longevity, I would rather you be healthy. So whatever health looks like for her size, I would ask her to reduce her body fat percentage to get there. If she's 260 pounds in this picture, I'm just throwing numbers out here. Don't get your panties in a bunch. If she's 260 pounds in this picture right here, I would kindly ask her to get down to 180. I would say roughly about 180. She would be right at 180. And I would not ask her to lose not an ounce more beyond that, because I'm assuming that she's losing the appropriate amount of body fat, that her muscularity would start to show, and there's no need for her to reduce her size to try to placate to my ego if that ever had so existed. Because as you know, I'm 5 feet 4 inches tall. I'm 153, 154 pounds at this point. She's bigger than me. It's just that simple, right? If she happens to be, even if she was my height, if she walked around at 180, she's physically bigger than me. Is my ego going to be so bruised that I can't be with a woman larger than me? No, because I'm strong. Maybe, I don't know if I'm stronger than she is, but I am strong in my own right. So I am not going to be in the least bit concerned about the physicality of my woman if she is in shape. My ego is already checked out. Does that make sense? So I disagree with her sentiment that we are merely displeased about her shape.
If I was to show you guys Dahomey warriors, right, and these are quite literal, the basis of Amazons, like actual African women who were
I want you to see the difference, though. These are large women. They're tall. They clearly have muscularity. They are larger than average. However, the previous woman is not built like that currently. I believe if she were lean, she would be built like this. My grandmother was built like this. My grandmother, who is still with us, is built like this. God bless her, she's 100 years old now. But in her prime, she was built like this. About 5'9", 5'11", anywhere between 5'9" and 5'11", walking around at 160 solid. You couldn't tell that woman anything. She wasn't skinny, but she wasn't fat either. She was just a large woman. I've shown pictures of my grandmother in the past. My grandmother was 92 in the photo, and she still had considerable size at 92. So imagine her in her prime. Imagine her at 25, 28. When I first met my grandmother would have been 60, 61 years old. When I met my grandmother for the first time, I was 7 going on 8 years old. Which means she was 59, going on 60. Okay? Solid woman. Even at 60, even at 59, 60 years old. Solid woman. All right? So these pictures and these photographs supports her argument that there are black women who have a larger frame than average.
Extremely in shape. Some of you would probably see those same women.
I don't know what Serena been doing lately, but she needs to stop because I think she's a lot smaller than she needs to be currently. If you've seen the photos, you know what I'm talking about. But Serena Williams is a perfect example. She's 5'9", claimed 150, don't believe it. In her prime, I believe she was closer to 170, 180. Maybe not 150. I might be inclined to say 165. She's clearly bigger than me. There's no doubt about that at all. We ain't going anywhere to play that. Serena Williams was bigger than me. Not in terms of height, because clearly she was, and it's not hard to be taller than me, right? She's 5'9". With her muscularity, she was about similar to me in muscularity. With a whole 5 inches in height taller than me. I weigh 153 right now. With all my clothes off, naked, I weigh 153. You trying to tell me Serena Williams was 153 as well? No. Absolutely not. I honestly would say, like I said, modestly, respectfully, I would say 160, 165. In this photo right here. This photo right here, 5'9", 165. And I'm not saying that to be disparaging. I'm saying she's a large woman. She's not fat. Anybody that says she's fat is an idiot. Okay? Even at her largest when she was pregnant with her daughter and the after effects of her pregnancy with her daughter. That was the largest Serena Williams has ever been in her entire tennis career. But are you going to tell me that she was 150 pounds at 5'9"? You give me a break. Nope, not going to believe it. Not for 1 second. She's walking around at 165. Minimum. On the higher end of her fitness, I would probably say higher end of her fitness, 175, 180. Max 180. She wasn't crossing into the 200s. But in her prime, max 180. There's nothing wrong with Serena Williams. As a matter of fact, Serena Williams' physique was phenomenal. Okay? And couldn't nobody deny that.
Outside today and be like, ugh, look at these fat black women. Because the European standard is one.
Every last one of these women are of different height and weights. This woman on your left, I don't know her full name, but she, if I'm not mistaken, she is a shot putter or a discus thrower. This young lady is a swimmer. Simone Biles is all of 4'7", 4'8". But I guarantee you she's no 92 pounds. Simone Biles at 4'8", I am willing to bet was 105 minimum. Let's Google it, shall we? Simone Biles' height. Let's start with that. She's 4'8", right? Now let's go to weight. 100. See, I promise you I didn't look this up before I got on the air. I promise you I did not. As a matter of fact, you would have seen that her name would have been in pink with Simone Biles' weight. You saw Simone Biles got looked up, but Simone Biles' weight was not looked up. You seen it floating in pink when I looked it up. What is my name? understand that 4'8", 105 pounds is huge. She's jacked, okay? She's swole. Now, granted, she's 105 pounds, so if I were to stand next to her, I'm going to appear like I'm the Rock standing next to her, right? But make no mistake about it, her muscularity is going to rival mine, if not supersede mine in proportionality. All right? Simone Biles is a rock. Respectfully speaking, of course. I'm not saying this to be disrespectful. So this young lady that is speaking about the overweight black woman, she has a point.
One that says in shape equals low body fat percentage, and that is not like, you don't have to have a low body fat percentage to break someone's head open. Like, I don't know.
That's true too, but low body fat percentage is in relativity to what is required for a woman to function, not low body fat in terms of you're shredded. We're not discussing whether or not should a woman be shredded, because in all honesty, women should not be shredded unless they are pursuing bodybuilding or pursuing athletics with such fervor that they make the hard choice to minimize their body fat composition. But biologically speaking, the average woman does not need, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. The average woman does not need to be lean and shredded and cut. All right? So, yes, she has a point.
Tell y'all, like, there are people in the military right now who have a lot of...
Here we go. Perfect analogy. I've shown this picture on my Stoutt Fitness page on Facebook. Every last one of these women are athletes. These are athletic women. According to this woman is 6'2", 243 pounds. 6'2", 243. Look at the muscularity in her legs. She's clearly got it. Is her midsection totally shredded like this one is? Is this midsection as shredded as this one? Is this one shredded as this one? Is this one shredded as this one? These two women are closer in proportionality than any other woman on this frame right here. But guess what I can see on this woman? I can clearly see her abs. I can clearly see her collarbone. So is she fat? No. Not one woman in this photograph is fat. She's choosing to keep her body fat percentage normal because she is a power athlete. I'm going to assume these are more closer to endurance athletes. Based on muscularity, I'm willing to bet that gymnast over here, she would be something that requires a lot of torso rotation. So what would she be? Pole vault. Wow. Here we go. See, I would say she's a swimmer just by looking at her body. Swimming. It says adventure racing. I'm dope at this. Like I said, I'm going to toot my own horn for a minute here. This goes to show you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And clearly, this woman's a basketball player. Clearly. But at no point in time, I'm looking at body muscularity. What are their bodies being built for? She's short and shares similar muscularity with her. So clearly there's more explosive movements. There's more what's the word I'm looking for? I'm plyometric movements involved. Like I said, I can see her midsection is strong, but it is not ripped. So therefore, I already made the assumption that she has to perform a lot of rotational movements in order to perform. And she's a pole vaulter. She runs in one direction, but when that beam goes up, her core engages. She has to disengage her core and rotate to get out of it. Right? So, and oh, I'm sorry, she's a hammer thrower. Again, strong midsection, more rotation, quite larger, but there's muscularity in her legs. There's clearly muscularity in her arms. It is imperative for her build that she has power. Okay, but let's keep going because I want to get to other videos and other topics.
Fat on them who are dangerous as fuck and who you don't want to run a fade with. So your assumption of what in shape and out of shape looks like is just really your aesthetic opinion. Like, you just don't like women who have fat on their bodies. That's it. That's it.
Incorrect. Disproportionate amounts of fat on the body. And even that is on a preference level. Okay? Health is based on the proportionality of fat mass on one's body. Okay? If you're 20% male or female, you're actually living okay. Male, you're living on the edge of obesity, but you're okay. Women, you're living on the edge of actually emaciation because you're supposed to be anywhere between 17 to 25% body fat to function as a healthy young woman. Okay? Just so you know, just putting it out there.
And that's okay for you to say, but you cannot be making assumptions about what people's health are, what their physical capabilities are, based on what they look like. And I'm going to insert pictures of healthy people who are.
This woman's clearly a powerlifter. I would say she's still not healthy. She has a lot of adipose tissue around her stomach, but that is mainly due to the fact that she is loading up to get into a particular weight class to also support her body based on the exertion rates that she has to exert over a long period of time. Powerlifting, especially Olympic powerlifting, is hard. She needs to be as hardy as all get out. Is she ever going to be skinny? No. Is she healthy right now? No, but I guarantee you, she'll throw me. She'll throw me. Because 155, 154, 155 pounds, she can throw over her head with extreme regularity, with extreme ease. These are women that are clean and jerking 250 plus pounds. Okay? You know, split, press over the head and the whole 9 yards. She'll fling me. And I'm strong. And she'll still fling me. Come here. You know? Mortal Kombat style. But is she healthy? Hell no. She's not healthy. Stop playing. Am I shaming her? No, because she's clearly active and her body fat percentage is not actually a hindrance to her at the moment. The moment she steps out of activity, her diet needs to change, her fitness levels need to change, her activity levels need to change, and she's still, despite all of those recommendations, still going to be a larger woman. So she's right and wrong at the same time. Remember what I said? She's on the road, but she's veering off. She's got to be careful.
People will probably see out in public and say, this fat bitch.
I wouldn't call her fat bitch, sorry. But she is also technically, this woman is technically fat. Is she powerful? Is she strong? Is she athletic? You best believe she is. I've always said Lizzo was fit, but she is not healthy. This is not healthy for this particular white woman. Not healthy. Whether it's desirable to me or not is another story. Okay? And whether it's desirable to the next man or not. Laws of averages will say no, but every man is different. Okay? So therefore, we're not talking about attraction. We are talking about health. Is this woman healthy? No. Is she fit? Yes.
Which is another reason why I'm just so
okay, this woman, mildly different. Because look at her arms. She's clearly shot putting, but look at her arms. Those are guns. Those are massive pew-pews, okay? She puts me in a headlight, my head might pop. And I'm not talking trash. I am talking with extreme admiration for her physique. That is a large woman naturally. We're not getting around it. She's naturally just a large woman. You can see the muscularity in her legs. You can see the muscularity in her arms. You can see the broadness of her shoulders. You can see her chest. You can still see her collarbone. She's softer in the midsection, but I guarantee you, even if she lost that, she's still a large woman. Stop playing with her. And is she 17%? Anywhere between 17 to 25%? Quite likely she is. And if she's anywhere between 17 to 25%, guess what? I'm not going to say she's fat. I'm not even going to say, I'm personally not going to even suggest she's fat right now. She might be softer around the middle, but is she fat? Probably not. This particular woman, no. I'd probably say she's not fat.
like that fat shaming and fat phobia is like fully back in swing like this. Like, y'all don't know what the fuck you.
Fat shaming and fat phobia is a thing. However, fat phobia is not actually genuinely real. Nobody's afraid of fat people. I'm going to keep repeating that. They might be repelled by fat people, but they're not afraid of fat people. Phobia is an irrational fear. Or, actually, technically, phobic can actually determine whether or not attraction or repulsion because one is fat. So actually, you're right. Fat phobia, fat phobic is real. Fat phobia is not. Fat phobia will be an irrational fear of a fat person. A fat phobic person is somebody that is merely repulsed by extreme adipose tissue. So I'm going to make sure I cover my bases here.
Which is another reason why I'm just so annoyed that fat shaming and fat phobia is like fully back.
So yeah, she said fat phobia. We're going to turn around and say no. Fat phobia is an astronomical condition. It is astronomically improbable that you have fat phobia. Can you be fat phobic? Yes. So let's go back. I'm going to go back to Miss Simone Biles' part, and I'm just going to say fat phobic definition. Fat phobia is a term used to describe a negative, discriminatory, and often irrational fear or dislike of fat people. Irrational, right? Prejudice and discrimination, objectification and dehumanization, media portrayal, systemic oppression, right? No. Fat phobic. Okay, now fat phobic, an aversion or hostility to, disdain for fatness and fat people. Okay, that would be fat phobic. Fat phobia would be the irrational fear of fatness and fat people. So I'm going to make those two distinctions before I move on with this video. You can be fat phobic is a hostile disdain or dislike of fat people. Okay, that is true. So if you're saying that somebody is fat phobic and that is your definition, yes, your fat phobic could be a description of fat phobia, but typically fat phobic would only merely describe your hatred, hostility or disdain of a fat person or fat people or being fat or fat people in general. Fat phobia is an irrational fear of either being fat or of fat people. And I'll make that distinction and I'll die on that hill. So if we're going to talk on fat phobic people are technically no worse than a racist. Okay? Fat phobic people who are not speaking on the description of a person with an irrational fear of being fat or fat people, we're simply talking about the aversion, hostility, and disdain for fat people and people who happen to be fat. That is tantamount to no different than racism. And I will be fair and say that. This young lady is cooking. She really is. But at the same time, she's making slight errors that are pushing her off the road. And it's not really going to, she has to come back.
Back and swing like this. Like, y'all don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
She's right.
Y'all don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
She's right.
And it's also just anti-black women. Like, also, this is another piece. I'm considered slim in America, okay? I've been traveling, right? I told y'all, in most places in the world, I'm like average size. Okay, I'm average sized.
Just because you're average size doesn't mean that it's okay. And on the inverse, just because you're of average size doesn't mean you're not okay. All right? As long as you are healthy with your size, I could care less as your personal trainer, your friendly neighborhood, social media personal trainer. I could care less how much you weigh. I want to know what your body fat percentage is, and that will be your indicator on whether or not you have a high probability of success surviving beyond a certain age with minimal to no disease. Anybody could contract cancer at any given time. So that could be more environmental than it is your physical, right? So we're not passing judgment or casting any aspersions if you got sick or ill at your current size, ma'am, who is Afro Wellness Waisha. I'm going to say Miss Waisha is your name. I'm going to say Miss Waisha. You are 99% right about everything you just said. Everything for the last 4 minutes you've been talking, you have been 99% right. I have rarely had to correct your opinion and your thoughts and your journey thus far. She's right. She is right. And if you are simply trying to shame a black woman because she's bigger than Becky or Su Ling or Mai Young or Anastasia, then you're wrong. If that is your simple passing of judgment, then you're wrong. But we'll get into the other end of the equation soon enough.
I'm considered slim. I'm slimmer than probably like 60% of the American women, okay? With that being said, most Americans are overweight, quote unquote. There's an obesity epidemic in our country.
We don't.
So why are y'all taking it upon yourselves to specifically hone in on just black women? It's weird. I see.
She has a point. We'll get into that later.
White people every day. What the fuck? Like, it's 2025, and I guess we have to fucking remind you all again that bodies come in all different shapes and sizes. If you don't like one, stop looking at it. Like, yes.
I'm gonna stop her here. I'm gonna end her video here where she says, if you don't like the body, stop looking at it. Yeah, you got her point, but how do you look away? How do you not look at something? Whether it repulses you, or whether you are fetishing it, or whether you're attracted to it. How do you not look? Just posing the question. I want to show you some of these comments. Our perception of what a healthy weight actually is literally killing us. Now, This is where the argument starts to come into play. Kessia Freeman, you're part right. It's not the look of the weight, it is what your body is carrying. You may be gorgeous at 170 to 200, but it's not healthy. Untrue. If your muscle mass supports it, it's fine. The minute your muscles and your physicality can no longer support that weight, then it's time to let it go. 100%. You cannot sit here and complain about your physicality when you're out of shape. As a matter of fact, come to think of it, last night I was looking at pictures of a young Della Reese. Della Reese, in her younger years, was lean, slim, and trim. But you could also see that she was also quite physically. She wasn't a small woman. She was lean. I would say even in comparison to her frame in her midlife years, she was skinny for her frame. But I assure you, if Della Reese in her youth stood next to the average woman, not black women, but just average woman, Della Reese would have had a significant physical presence than they would have, if that makes sense to you. I'm telling you, she was lean. There was not an ounce of fat on Della Reese. But yet, later in life, Biggie Smalls himself immortalized her by saying, I make your mouthpiece obese like Della Reese. We knew Della Reese was obese back then, later on in her life. But guess what? She had 3 children. We don't know the succession. I don't know the succession. I didn't look up her children's ages, but I can assure you, baby number 3 played a role on her level of obesity beyond, okay? And whether or not she got it together or not, because as also you have to remember, at those times, we were under the impression once you hit a certain age, it was beyond you to try to recapture your at that point. If a woman in her 40s was trying to get in shape, she was trying to recapture her youth. It was like basically saying, why don't you go knit something and sit in a rocking chair, old lady? Right? Nowadays we know better. We know that we are future proofing. We are also knowing that we don't have to accept our age ranges, because the same would go for me. I'm 48 years old. I don't necessarily, at this stage of my life, I don't have to be in shape. I am what some people would call an unk. I am what people would consider sometimes an OG. I don't need to be in shape. I choose to be. I'm at the age where I shouldn't care about what I look like physically, as long as I present well, as long as my hair's cut, I smell good, I dress nice. I really shouldn't care what my body looks like, right? But we now know better. Della Reese's time had passed. Her time to be quote unquote beautiful, and I said quote unquote, her time to be that had came and gone in her mind and in society's mind, especially in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. I want you to think about this. Della Reese passed away at 86 years old, I believe. Let's look that up real quick. Della Reese passed away at 86 years old in 2017. Harlem Nights came out in 1989. That is almost 40 years ago. That was almost 30 years ago when she passed, right? So considering that she was 86 years old, 30 years ago, she was 56. Okay? As a matter of fact, let's pull up some images of Della Reese. That's Della Reese. Do you see? Young Della Reese. Della Reese after she became a mom, I'm sure. Again, young Della Reese. Young Della Reese. Now I'm going to go into Miss Della Reese when she was in her 50s and early 60s. Okay? Again, Della Reese in her mid 40s, I would say. Just guesstimating. I'm going to be safe to say and assume that this is after she had a few kids. I'm not casting any aspersions. I'm just pointing out certain things, right? Then you got, like I said, Della Reese after Harlem Nights, right? Della Reese Harlem Nights. Let's see. Better picture of her right here. Clearly, she's not small, right? Young Della Reese. Older Della Reese. Young Della Reese. Older Della Reese. Again, I am not making any suggestions of attraction, no attraction. I am literally just demonstrating Della Reese put on some weight. You're trying to tell me Della Reese was healthy here? She was not. She suffered from type 2 diabetes. As a matter of fact, she died of complications of type 2 diabetes. Okay? And I could tell you what the real problem was. Her muscle mass was being diminished throughout the years after she had contracted type 2 diabetes. Over the years, she started diminishing her muscle mass because clearly in the photos where she was clearly older, in the pictures where she's older, you could clearly see she's a lot smaller. She's a lot thinner than she was prior to her youth. Okay, let's go back to this photo right here. She clearly lost weight. She's clearly diminished in her girth, right? But in that diminishment, she also lost a significant amount of her muscle mass, but not enough body fat to overcome the diabetic status that she had up until her death, if that makes sense. So her weight reduced, but her body fat composition did not. I want to be clear on that. So what this young lady is talking about is 100% right. But this person, RJ4246, doesn't know what he's talking about. This conversation you can have with black women without getting your head chopped off. So you can't have this is not a conversation you can have with black women without having your heads chopped off. So I don't. He's half right, half wrong. Again, you can have this well, I'm not even going to talk about the conversation part. Gorgeous at 170, 200 and not be healthy. That is partly true and partly not true. It depends on the build of the woman. What is her body composition looking like? If her body composition is 80% muscle, she is just fine the way she is. 170, 180, 205, 195, 105, it doesn't matter. Because technically, if you look at BMI, according to science, according to BMI, Simone Biles is either obese or overweight. So let's see. Let's go to this study because I'm going to go to this study to prove my point. This thing talks about healthy weight for women and it talks about the body mass index, right? But let's go up. The average weight of US women across an adult lifespan will change, but here it is. Ages 20 to 29 average, regardless of race, 165. She says she's 170. 30 to 39, 174. 40 to 49, 178. Then all of a sudden between 50 and 79, your weight just fluctuates. And then all of a sudden when you turn 80 and lower and older, you drop down to 149. So what is that suggesting? Is it saying that 80-year-olds are getting themselves in shape? No, it is literally between the ages of 30 and 79, you are losing, your body fat percentage is increasing, but your weight is staying in relativity the same. Because every decade that passes, you lose 10% of your muscle mass if you are not actively trying to keep it. But you weigh the same, which what does that suggest? If you are diminutive in muscle density as you get older, but your weight stays the same, what is the logical conclusion that we could come up with? You got fatter. You could get fatter and still weigh the same. Don't get it twisted. You can be fatter and weigh the same. So I don't want y'all thinking and getting it in your mind that, oh, we maintained our weight. We must be healthy from the ages of 30 to 79. No. You might be healthier at 30 to 39, and you might be a little bit healthy between 30 and 49, but I assure you, 50 to 79, you are diminutive and you're diminishing rapidly. It just so happens that your body fat percentage is getting worse, which is why as you get older, your health statuses start to decrease because you are not maintaining your muscle mass or adjusting your body fat percentages with the loss of muscle. If you're going to accept the fact that you're going to lose muscle, if you're going to live with that fact that you're going to lose muscle, you must decrease your body fat percentage along with the reduction of your muscle mass. So here's the deal. If you are healthy at age 30 to, let's say 39, if you are healthy at age 39 at 174 pounds, and you lost 10% of your muscle mass between 39 and 49, that means you should not weigh 178 at 49 years old. It means that you should be weighing anywhere between 157 to 160. 157 to 160, no, 157 should be the average weight if you're doing it right. Because if you're not maintaining your muscle mass, because again, we are making the assumption that you are going to lose 10% of your muscle mass between the ages of 39 and 49. And if you are going to lose your muscle mass between the ages of 39 and 49, 10% of it, then you need to lose 10, actually, correction. If you lost 10% and your body fat went and your weight remained the same, that means you gained 10% in body fat, right? Which means you went from 20% to 30%. And then you need to lose an additional 10% in body fat, right? So technically, you need to lose 34 pounds. So between age 39 and 49, You need to be 140 pounds at age 49 in order for you to be considered healthy. Just assuming body composition change. I'm gonna pause there for a minute. I'm gonna pause there because I want you to hear what I just said. If you lose 10% of your muscle mass from decade 39 to decade 49, or age 39 to age 49, that and maintain your body fat percentage as it were, you need to lose an additional 10%, actually 20% of your body fat. Because if you stay the same weight, if you were 20% muscle at age 39 and you lost 10% of your muscle mass, you're now 30% body fat, right? You have diminished, you're now 30% body fat. You have lost 10%, which means also, if you, depending on how much you weigh, that means you also gained 10% of body fat if you maintained your weight. Because if I lost 10% of my muscle mass, I should have lost 10% of my weight, right? So if I lost 10% of my weight, I would weigh, if I just lost 10% of my weight, no fat mass changed, I should weigh 157, right? And I still need to lose an additional 10% of my weight, which means I need to lose an additional 15 pounds. And at 157, that means I need to be 142 pounds. Math works, people. So between age 39 and 49, you're already messing up. In essence, you gained 30 pounds of body fat, 28 pounds of body fat. Between the last decade, between 39 and 49, you gained 28 pounds of body fat. Net fat is now 28 pounds. Okay? Now let's drop down to the racial component of it all, as y'all might have been reading ahead of me. Do me a favor, and if you're listening right now, or if you've been listening to what I've been saying, put a 1 in the chat. And if not, put a 1 in the comments. If you disagree with me, put a 2 in the comments. And then also, don't be afraid to explain why you disagree with me at this point. Non-Hispanic Asian, meaning non-Filipino. All Asians that do not speak Spanish weigh on average 135 pounds. Women, right? Average Asian woman who is not of Hispanic origin weighs 135 pounds. Average Hispanic woman, indigenous, black, white, average 168. Average white woman in the United States weighs 170 pounds. So when this young lady that was just talking on TikTok a moment ago said that when she walks around, she's slim compared to other women, she's right. She is of a weight of the average white woman at 5'7", whereas the average woman is 5'4" to 5'5". It's not a disparaging difference, but it's still a difference, right? Black, 188 and a half. I want you to understand that that is 18 pounds larger than the average white woman. That is a full 20 pounds larger than the average Hispanic. And we are talking about a whopping 53 pounds larger than the average Hispanic. You cannot tell me based on averages that we don't have an issue. Everybody outside of Asians don't have an issue, but Asians are typically short in stature as well. And culturally, they don't accept you if you are larger. They don't accept you if you are obese, culturally speaking. Okay? So I'm going to read this. It says, because of your height and muscle tone, because your height and muscle tone impact your weight, the number of pounds alone is not enough to tell if you're at a healthy weight. Body mass index is one way to measure if you're overweight or obese. The higher your BMI, the greater your risk for obesity-related conditions like heart disease or blood pressure type 2, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers, right? Healthy weight, healthy BMI is 18.5 to 24.9. Overweight is 25 to 29.9, and I fall in the overweight category, technically, and obese is 30 and above, right? 4 foot 10 inches, healthy weight in pounds, 91 to 118. That actually is quite accurate. That's quite accurate. Because at 4 foot 8 inches, Simone Biles is 105. So I'm assuming, adjusting for height, Simone Biles could get as big as what, 116 pounds? But she's going to be all muscle. Right? So let's get to the average. Average woman at 5'7" should, at the heaviest, will weigh 158, assuming that their BMI is what it is. But again, we're not accounting for muscularity. But if she says she's 170 pounds, that's only 12 pounds. She could be carrying an immense amount of weight in the lower region of her body, which is why I said she's a type 24. She is tall in stature. I would say type 25. She's medium build, upper body, lower body endomorphic, based on her description of herself. Right? So that extra 12 pounds could be on her lower half. Why is she fat? Is her stomach flat? Is she, she doesn't have to be shredded, but is her stomach flat? Do you see the outline of her abs? If the answer is yes, I'm not going to press the issue too much. As a personal trainer, I'm not. Okay? Let's get back to this channel. So you are not fat, of course. This woman, Bellicose, is supporting her, but in the upper society of whiteness, you're nowhere near small. Definitely not. No, you're not small. Have you not been hearing my language use? She is large. She's not fat. There's a difference. And there's always going to be a difference between large and fat. Truly affluent white people think Lori Harvey is fat. And she is a wrong and attainable body goal to have. So unfortunately, if you're not giving Tyler, you will be perceived as large. Large is not fat. That's not a perception. You're not perceived as large. You are large. But large is not fat, people. Large is not fat. Large is large. Small is small. Medium is medium. Fat is fat. Skinny is skinny. There's no way to get around it. Point blank range every time. I go to Pilates every day. I'm fit in shape, but I'm still bigger than every white woman in every class frame-wise. That could be true. And that's not an unusual occurrence. We're bigger than them, and that's not a bad thing. She's right. All of this and the comments telling you can't be slim at 170 are part of the problem. People are very skewed in their ideas of what health looks like versus what it actually is. And I will be inclined to agree. So I'm going to come out of this. Let's go to another video, right?
Black women are overweight. According to the CDC, Black American women aged 20 years and older, 82% of us are overweight. This is including me.
So as a naturally slim,
Black women are overweight. Black women are years and older. 82% of us are overweight. This is including me. Now listen, when I was 350 plus pounds, I knew no one was going to save me but me. And some things that you can do if you're, obese is walking. Walking never failed me. You gotta keep yourself active. But ladies, even our children are obese. We gotta change the narrative. We gotta change the narrative. I know y'all like going to the seafood bowls. Y'all, let's stop going to them seafood bowls. I get it, we can go every once in a blue moon, but we're going to them seafood bowls 2 to 3 times a week. Come on, y'all, we can do it. My name is Tiffany. Lock in. 150 pounds down naturally in 2.5 years. Let's get it. Peace.
Okay. Tiffany, respect to you because you said you were 300 pounds a few years ago. And she's right. She might have been obese at 300. Well, she clearly was obese at 300 pounds, right? However, she's also pointing out the ill-fated behaviors of our women in certain regions of the country and in certain cultures, because there's subcultures within the Black community. So I don't know if you know this or not, but there's subcultures within the Black community that will promote certain attitudes and lifestyle, because success in some subcultures' minds is being able to have seafood at a moment's notice. Those seafood boils, seafood in of itself is not necessarily unhealthy. What is unhealthy is the ingredients that are used within the seafood. The sheer amounts of butter. I've been to the Juicy Crab, y'all. As a matter of fact, my wife and I usually have some sort of celebration like that once a year where we go to the Juicy Crab. We get there. There's, boils, and you got like a half pound to a pound of crab with potatoes, sausage, and garlic butter or Cajun butter, and it's just butter, and it's, oh my God, it's corn, and it's butter, and it's crabs, and it's butter. What else is in there? It's crawfish, and it's butter. The butter alone is doing a number on you. Lord knows how many calories you've ingested just by eating the butter alone. Okay? Then add on the seafood. On top of that, how much calories do you think you've eaten in that short period of time? And you're not going every once in a while like she suggested, like me and my wife do. You're going 2 and 3 times a week. Because you got money. You know what I'm in the mood for? I'm in the mood for some juicy crab. You know what? I'm going to get me some juicy crab, and I'm going to eat it. And that was Sunday. Ooh, child, let me tell you. I'm in the mood for some crab. You know where I'm going? You know where I'm going. I'm going to Juicy Crab, right? I don't have a sponsorship with them. That's where I frequent when I go. Or I just buy the crabs myself, get as much butter as appropriately acceptable for the amount of crabs that I purchased, put them in an aluminum pan, put them in the oven, put the butter on top of them, let it run through them, and then season it with Old Bay, put it back in the oven, let it do its thing, and we're good to go. And guess what? Maybe 3, 4, 5 months down the road, we'll do it again. Not because we can't necessarily afford to, but because we physically can't afford to. We can't afford to eat like that all the time. We're not spring chickens. We're not 20 years old anymore. Okay? And these ill-fated habits that Miss Tiffany is talking about is the truth. Now, the 80%, according to the CDC, again, is using BMI. And it is not accurate. Is it a high percentage of Black women that are overweight? I would say I would be inclined to agree with that. But 82% is extremely high. I'll be more remiss to revisit that study, have their muscle masses measured, and then revise based on percentage of body fat. If it's still 82% Black women, I'm sorry to tell you, she's 100% right if that's the case. Feel the way you feel, I don't care. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to hide because I'm afraid of the backlash. I'm not. Because I'm not being disrespectful. I am not being condescending. I am literally laying it out for you and making the correct arguments in the process of holding you accountable. No one ever taught us that the height and weight difference of each person means different calorie intakes. That plus the extra fast food is not good for us. Now, this is somebody's, Maggie is absolutely right. I would say don't take out seafood boils. Instead, put the butter in the side and dip it for less calories. True, but seafood is actually really good for you, especially for protein and being full. She's right on that as well. However, still ingesting butter according to how much you dip it, you're not gonna eat it just plain as it is. You're gonna keep dipping it every bite you take. So whether it's drowning in butter or whether it's not drowning in butter is irrelevant. You're still gonna over ingest. You're just not going to be as large. You're still gonna, not as fat. You're still gonna be fat if that is of consequence of eating the seafood twice a day. Twice, 2 and 3 times a week. In that capacity, if you are eating it in its healthiest form where you are boiling it and seasoning it while you boil it in regular water, salt, Old Bay water, and possibly pouring some beer in it, then and only then would I turn around and accept the concept of eating it without the butter and therefore moving on and doing that. That's fine. But Maggie is on to something. I'm going to let Maggie cook on that. 82%, oh my goodness. Again, assuming the CDC is accurate in their depiction of Black women, 82% is ridiculous. 82% is high. And if 82% of us are in fact overweight, ladies, guess what? I'm not a lady, but I'm saying us as in Black people representing the women. If y'all are 82% obese or overweight, 82% of us are overweight, that's a huge problem. That is a discipline, cultural, habitual problem. I'm not going anywhere to say it. Half of us can't even admit that they're overweight, obese. No accountability. Tiffany said that, and she's right. That's the other half of the argument. Okay? And I'm going to explain to you why that is. So, last week I showed you the variables of Cain, right? The variables of Cain is consumption, appetite, nutrition, and expenditure. I'll go into the details of that in a moment. Consumption is the component of weight loss or gain that garners the most attention. It is important, but it is not the end-all be-all. How many calories you consume matters because if you either accumulate too much or too little, depending on the remaining variables of Cain, you will either gain or lose weight respectively. So if you're sitting here just munching, eating, and you're not actually putting forth effort and training and getting in shape, guess what that means? You're going to gain weight. If you keep going to the seafood boils and all you do is hop in your car and drive back, and you're doing this 2 and 3 times a week, and all you do is drive back to and from, you don't have no physical activities such as going to the gym and working out at all, I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts you're going to be obese. Your shape might save you. Your physical appearance might save you, but you're killing yourselves because you're still obese. You're still overweight. Assuming your body composition isn't 25%, between 17 to 25%. If you're not in that range, you're overweight. And if you're over 30% body fat, 35% body fat, you're obese. So if you're 26, depending on your age, if you're 26 to 34.9% body fat, you are overweight. Make the assessment, ladies. Go to your local gym, go to your local fitness shop, go to your local doctor, and get your body composition done. You do your body composition, I assure you, you find out where you sit based on your age range. And when you find out that your age range, for your age range, you're floating into the overweight realm, it has nothing to do with BMI. It has everything, it has nothing to do with your race. It has everything to do with your habits of consumption at this point, right? Appetite, one of the most overlooked components. So now remember, we just talked about going to the seafood boil 2 and 3 times a week. That might not be a bad thing unless you have a voracious appetite or poor nutrition or poor expenditure, right? So it is recognized, but it's highly misconstrued. This is where the most assumptions are made about the body composition of people who are overweight or obese. A lot of the times, people make the assumption that you're obese because you eat a lot. Not true. If you're eating the donut a lot, which is high calorie, low nutrient density, your propensity for obesity increases than it would if you ate the apple. So you ate a dozen donuts or a dozen apples. Which one do you think is going to make you fatter? Obviously the donut, right? Because a donut contains about 360 calories per donut, if I'm not mistaken. Glazed donut is anywhere between 190 and 240 calories. Chocolate glazed donut's 380 calories, 320 to 380 calories. And that is my favorite. Chocolate glazed is my favorite. Some glazed donuts are 330 calories depending on how they're made. Especially if they're made like the buttermilk styles. If they're that airy, light, and fluffy, melt in your mouth kind, 195 calories. A dozen. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it a stack and just call it 10. You ate 10 donuts. That is 1,950 calories you consume when the average person only needs 2,000 calories for the day. Your appetite coerced you into eating 10 donuts. And like I said, I'm talking about the Krispy Kreme ones. And like I said, Krispy Kreme ones melt in your mouth. They just float. They don't have no substance, no weight, no gravity to them when you eat them. The volume that it takes up in your stomach is minimal, but the density of the calories is prodigious, right? So as a result, You just took in 1,950 calories, and you're going to be hungry 2 hours later without fail because you have a high appetite. We're not even talking about metabolism yet. Metabolism is different. All of these are the components of your metabolism. Actually, yes. It's all components of your metabolism, especially the expenditure part is the major components of your metabolism. But these are the factors that make up your metabolism. But in truth, your appetite is not your metabolism. You can have a high appetite, but a low metabolism. Your body can process food very slowly, but you could be hungry really quickly, all based on chemical influences, based on what it is that you either ingested or based on what it is that you surround yourself with. Okay? So let's finish. Again, it plays a role, but it is a factor of determining how one should consume calories as opposed to judging how one is healthy or not. How often you eat is not the issue per se. It only becomes an issue if you overindulge in consumption while lacking nutrition and expenditure. This is the keys to the kingdom, people. This, as your trainer, this is what I'm focused on. Not the appetite. I'm talking about the variables of Cain. This is what I'm focused on. Nutrition. Of all the variables, this one is one of the most disregarded. If you are not maintaining a balance of nutrients, both macro and micro, your ability to lose, gain, or maintain weight will be extremely difficult. This is where carbs, fats, and proteins, along with vitamins, minerals, and water are measured. A person who is not in a sufficient standing in any one of these factors will struggle mightily in their fitness goals. Did I stutter or did I mutter? Expenditure, while it is the most regarded, it is the least practiced. TDE, or total daily energy expenditure, is the total amount of energy given away on a daily basis. First is BMR, basal metabolic rate, which is what your body needs to bare minimum to function. The more muscle density you have, the higher your BMI. Your BMR, not I. Next is your NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is the energy you burn just living, whether it's grocery shopping, walking around in your home, playing with your children. This is where NEAT lives. Lastly is EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis. This is where exercise comes in. The more you exercise, the more energy you burn, the harder the workout, the more energy you use. In conjunction with the other three variables, this is how one manipulates their weight and composition. So I'm going to give you the quadrants, simplify it one more time. Calorie consumption is merely food and calories. Appetite is the times of day you are consuming. Nutrition is the quality of elements you consume, and expenditure is exercise. Okay? So, it's getting pretty late. I'm almost touching on 2 hours, but I wanted to talk to you real quick before I go about Shannon Sharpe being fired from ESPN. Unfortunately, he settled in the $50 million lawsuit. He didn't fight it to the end like he claimed he would. I'm assuming because there was either going to be some evidence that would have came out that would have put him in a very compromised position. And as opposed to simply allowing that information to come out, he acquiesced and paid this woman a hefty amount of money. I do not know the amount. But considering one of my videos was about the humiliation of affluent black men, I have to say, he has been humbled. Period. Hopefully, It's a shame because he was a treasure on ESPN. It's a shame because his banter with Stephen A. Smith and the others on the show was actually well thought out, well educated. Even his takes on LeBron, as much as I disliked his takes on LeBron most of the time, they were rooted in some variance of fact. They were intelligent, sometimes laughable, but they were still intellectually sound arguments he was making, as opposed to complete and utter rubbish and nonsense. I hope in the future, Mr. Sharp, you have some penile discipline and maintain a more upstanding position in your life. I'm not going to take on the racial component of this because that is not necessary. However, from one sense, I will not take on that. But the humiliation of black men, as you can see, is on an all-time high, whether we are playing into it ourselves or if it just so happens to be manipulation of sorts is a whole nother story. As somebody who is looking at my quote-unquote heroes falter mightily, this one hurts because I was enjoying his presence on ESPN after the debacle on FS1. And I mean not his debacle, but the debacle of the relationship of him and Skip Bayless on FS1. I'm going to land this plane. Is there validity to the argument that black women may be overweight or obese? Yes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to fake the funk. Yes, there's validity to the argument. Is it the end all be all, as in it is factually 100% correct without a shadow of a doubt that black women as a whole are obese and overweight? Not necessarily. Pump the brakes. You don't necessarily have to come to a complete halt, but you might want to pump the brakes and slow them down because you might veer off of that track and end up in a ditch somewhere. Like the young lady that I was addressing earlier. You're making some statements that have validity in the argument, but if you push a little too hard on that steering wheel, if you turn that steering wheel one way or another too hard, a little too much harder, you're going to end up in a ditch. And then you're going to lose credibility and you're going to lose validity in your argument. There's plenty more videos on it. If you want me to have this discussion further and have a part 2 to this discussion, go ahead and put a 5 in the chat for me. If not, I would appreciate your support by liking this video or even a subscription or 2. But don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Have a nice day. Be the best you. And class is Stoutt.